Hey there, I hope everybody's doing well. I wanted to make a video to show you a new Boker Scout knife that just came rolling in, this one here. And this one's made in Germany, which makes it a little different than the others that I've had. Before I talk about that knife, I want to revisit this knife, which is a Boker 182 camp knife or sports messer. This was the subject of my last video, and in that video I stated several times that this was a pre-World War II knife. I've since come to learn that that's probably not true. It's probably a knife from the 1950s. The reason I say that is that one of the authors of the Boker book, which is an excellent reference for Bokers, and www.thebokerbook.com to get your own copy, Ricky Ray contacted me and sent me 3 different images of old Boker ads, a couple from the 1950s and one from 1961. That showed what appeared to be this exact knife. A large shield with no Solingen in it, this style jigging, and in the body of all the ads they do say stag or bone stag handles. So this knife is probably from the 50s based on its condition, which is just excellent. You know, it's kind of almost hard to believe that this knife is pre-World War II based on its condition. I was hopeful that it was, but I think it's a little younger than I thought it was. So yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I'm still really glad to have it. It's hard to get these with the big shield, the bone or stag handles, and particularly in this condition, it's almost impossible. But probably from the 50s, and I want to thank Ricky Ray for sending me that stuff. He's been super helpful, by the way, real friendly guy. He's been super helpful in sending all kinds of information about these old Bokers to me so I can learn a little bit about what I'm doing. So yeah, I apologize. Bear with me as I bumble my way through dating these knives and Boker history, which, as you know, can be a pretty confusing subject. That also kind of calls into question this knife that I, on a couple of occasions, said was from probably the 1950s, just after the war, with the smaller shield and the plastic handles. Upon a closer read of the Boker book, they say that Boker introduced the plastic handles on this model around the early 1960s, which would jive with the ads that Mr. Ray has sent me. So to the knife, that's the subject of this video. So this is a little 4-bladed equal end Scout knife. I believe it's about 3 5/8. I didn't measure it, but that's your standard size for these, unless they're juniors, and then they're 3 3/8. This is made in Solingen, so this was a German-made one, and you don't see these as often. Rick over at Warthog, the channel Warthog, recently reviewed one of these. And I want to thank him for that because I was able to go back and take a really good look at these before I bought this one. And they are nice knives. I generally don't like knives with plastic handles, but this is a nice one. So a little different than the US versions that you more typically see. No bail, smooth bolsters, plastic handle. It's probably Delrin. It doesn't appear to have shrunk or cracked anywhere like a celluloid product might have over, you know, a 50-year period. So they did a really good job imitating jig bone, kind of pocket worn, and it's just jet black like a really well dyed piece of bone might be. So this one's in stainless steel, and it's very tight, well built knife, just typical German quality. Here you can see that more modern shield. It's smaller, has lines in the background, does say Solingen on it. This one has brass pins. Sometimes it's hard to see under the light of the camera, but I believe those are brass. And we'll just take a look at the tools real quickly. Here's your screwdriver cap lifter. And this knife really has got very little marks of use. I don't believe it's used much at all. This one has the can opener down on this end, and it's that kind of Boker style safety can opener. And here they've just flat ground it from the spine down here to the edge, nice sharp edge. Looks like this one has seen a couple of cans, but not too much use. Good spring action and snap on this knife. As I said, it is in stainless steel. These more recent Boker Scout knives will have a pen blade back here instead of a punch, as this one does. It's got a nice edge, no tank stamps. And then onto the main blade. There's a little nail nick here. You can get it just between those two tools. Just kind of peeks up there. And it's a more slender spear point blade. This one's got a good edge. I don't believe this knife's ever been sharpened, really. Some light scratches, not many. A little bit of blade rub. And here's your tank stamp. Boker, Solingen, Germany, Enox. And there's the Boker tree brand symbol to the left. So this knife dates from the 70s, and that would make it, what, 50-something years old. It's in great shape, looks kind of newish. Real nice example. I don't have the one that it would most closely compare to from Boker USA, from this time frame. I can show you one in the Boker book. Here they have a lineup of some Boker USA Scout knives, and this is the one they made up till they quit in the 80s. I had one of these, and it was a very nice knife, and I sold it along. I sold it to a friend and a excellent client, a fellow down in Louisiana. It's got a good collection, and I hope he still has a knife. I thought it was a nice little knife. Hope he's happy with it. There is the smaller shield again, Delrin handles. There you can see the can openers on the main blade end, the screwdriver cap lifters on the bail end. So it's the opposite of the Solingen one. And it has a really long screwdriver cap lifter. But it does have the pen blade and post the punch, but it also has a bail and a long nail pull. So a lot of differences there. They also show this one they date this one from the 1960s, and I do have one of those. Let's just take a look at that again real quick. Mine is not a Boker branded, but it's a John Primble Belknap branded knife. They were a large hardware store chain, and they had private label knives that they had made for them by Boker. So this is one of their contract knives, and you can tell because it has the star there below the model number, so that indicates that this was a Boker knife, and it looks just like those knives. This one's got you'll see that it's exactly like the one in the picture here. It's got the Jimp shield on a bone handle, line bolsters, the style of cap lifter, can opener up at the main blade end, and then a much longer screwdriver cap lifter at the bail end, and then that pen blade again. Also in the book they show, the oldest one they show here, they date from the 50s, and you can see some differences. You're back to that old style can opener down on this end, and you do have a punch instead of a blade. I do have one of those. I think the one I have might actually be from the 40s. The reason I say that is that it's all steel construction. There's no brass in here, and there was a couple of years during the war where pocket knife makers didn't use brass. They couldn't use brass. It was all requisition for the war effort. I believe this is an Army engineer's knife, and for issue to U.S. military personnel during the war. Looks just like every other one I've ever had or seen. It's kind of got that quality of tools that made to those specs, just that mass-produced Army contract quality. Thin bone handles. So anyway, this one is, however, a Boker USA, so it does get included in here. Alright, so I'm rambling on, but just to look at my Boker camp and scout knives. I don't have many. I had one more camp knife. It was a pre-World War II one, because the tank stamp definitely dated at 1944 or earlier. But it had wood handles, and it was a beautiful knife, but I sold it along. Did well with it, so I'm happy about that. But in the listing I explained that the handles were probably replacements, that they were probably not original. But I'm kind of after a pre-World War II one that I know is wholly original. So I'll let somebody else be happy with that knife for a while. Okay. Hey, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. I got some other great Boker knives on the way, and of course there'll always be other interesting things on the channel as well. Have fun collecting.